Hi, good afternoon, good morning, good day. Welcome to another session of Canvas Live. Canvas Live sessions are presented by Canvas community members or Instructure employees to help Canvas users improve and enhance their teaching and learning with Canvas. Today, we are starting a new series called the Groupies. We're going to talk about group assignments today, but this series is intended to unravel all the ways that the word groups is used in Canvas. My name is B-Rai. I'm a community manager here at Instructure. And with me, Rob Ditto from Wharton, University of Pennsylvania, the Academic Computing Courseware team. He's the technical director there, and we have him joining us as well. We will tag team on this presentation and talk about group assignments. I'll cover a little bit about how to set the group assignments up, and Rob will help me out by telling me some considerations to be mindful of when you're setting these up. As you know, what does groups mean in Canvas? We have a variety of ways that groups is used throughout Canvas, and they all mean something different. For example, when you say groups, you might be referring to student groups. Well, in Canvas, student groups is a smaller version of your course, which leverages a separate space for discussion and collaboration. Sometimes you might think groups as in group work. Well, in Canvas, when you think group work, you might be talking about leveraging the collaboration tools for working on common projects. Group assignments or group work, group assignments may also be something that you're thinking. And in Canvas, that might mean the submission of an assignment by a group of students. In other words, one person from that group submits on behalf of the group. Sometimes you hear the word group referenced in assignment groups, which is a way that in Canvas you group assignments in a course for organizational purposes, if you want to weighted grading, things like that. So there's assignment groups. And then there's assignments for a group. So it's also kind of group assignments, but in this case, it's an assignment intended for a specific group of students. So you create an assignment and you only want a specific group to submit that assignment. It's another way of saying differentiated assignments. So clearly, I'm sure there are other ways to use the word group in Canvas, but clearly when you use groups, there's a lot of commonalities around these references, but there's a lot of different distinctions as well. So for today's session, in today's series, we will talk about group assignments, how you set up groups in your class so that when you have an assignment, so we'll look through the assignment cycle itself, when you have an assignment, that groups are submitting their work to that assignment, one submission per group. So in order to frame this session, let's talk about the simple how-tos of how this works. First, you have to create the groups. In other words, you have to find ways to distribute your students into different groups. Then you have to associate those groups with the assignment that you want them to submit to. So we'll talk about how to set that up in the settings. There is an ad hoc way of setting up groups in the assignment settings, and we'll look at that as well. And then at the end of the assignment lifecycle, you grade those group assignments. And so we'll look at the back end in the speed grader, how those assignments show up in the speed grader. So to start, let's look at creating groups. When you're designing your course, you want to go into the People tab of your course if you're the instructor, and there should be a button that says plus group set. So you want to click on that to create your group set. In Canvas, group set and group category are interchangeable. In other words, you'll see group set reference in the People page, but you might see group category reference in the assignment settings. They both mean the same thing. Essentially, when you're creating a group set, you're creating kind of a category of groups. So in this case, in our example, we'll have debate groups. And under debate groups, you might have debate group 1, debate group 2, debate group 3, 4, and so forth. When you're defining your group, you want to also define your group structure. And in Canvas, this basically is another way of saying, how do you want to distribute your students across these groups? So there are a couple of different ways you can do that. Canvas can do that automatically. So you can say, take my class and split it up into 5 groups and distribute those students evenly. This is great if you have a pretty large class. You can create groups manually. So for instance, if you want specific group students in your class to work with each other or not work with each other, you can then go in and manually create those distributions. Or you can let the students sign up themselves. They can join the group that they want to join. All of these are, from the functional perspective, easy to do, and you can distribute your students any way you'd like. The question is, how does it reflect in the assignment, and what's the goal here? How do students see groups once you've created them in Canvas? Well, like you, they go into People tab in their Canvas course, and they will see everyone, which is the roster, the class roster, and they'll also see a tab for groups. Now, it's a little bit different from their perspective because they see groups listed all in one place. And they are listed alphabetical, and they're also next to each group, you can see that they have the group category or group set name there as well. And if they're a self-sign-up group, then they have the option to join or leave or switch to a different group as well. If it's not self-sign-up, then these groups will be still listed, but they'll know which group they're part of by seeing the Visit tab here, which will tell them that they're part of this group, and then they can go visit that specific group space if you're leveraging that. So I'm going to turn it over to Rob, where he'll tell you a little bit more about some considerations that you want to make as you're setting up and establishing these groups. Rob?
Thanks, B-Roy. Hello, everybody. Great to be here. I'm at the business school at UPenn, which is the Wharton School. And our curriculum is chock full of group assignments. So over the years, we've been using Canvas since 2011. I and my team and our teachers have gotten to know these group settings and best practices around them pretty intimately. So feel free to, as questions occur to you, send us some messages in the group chat for this event, and we'll try to cover them. So I want to start out for considerations for creating groups just by going over some of what we've learned about building these settings in the group category and building groups. As B-Roy mentioned, the People page is where you work with your group categories and build the groups, and it's also where students sign up. But bear in mind that not all course designs will show the People tab to students. And when you don't show the People tab to students, you need to provide students a way to get there. So they, if they have to do anything that involves either self-sign up or even visiting their homepage, although Canvas course Global Navigation will provide a link to the group after they've joined or after they're assigned. Within the group category itself, when you see multiple tabs in the People page other than the Everyone tab, those are your group sets. So if you see in that example that was in the previous slide, debate groups would be in one tab, and paper groups would be in a different tab, and those tabs are the same thing as your group category or your group set. So for the different settings of a group category, you can have the self-sign-up checkbox turned on or off, and that basically governs whether the join, switch, or leave to are presented at group sign-up. You can set an overall size for the groups, and then once you have an overall size in the group category, that becomes the default. You create individual groups within that category. If Canvas hasn't already done that for you, you can also vary the size of each of those groups. There's some great underutilized functionality in the group category settings, which is called Leader. And Leader only work in scenarios where students are signing up or when you're assigning students to group. Student who becomes the leader, the setting we usually use is to have the first. They're then able to rename their group, selection. That can be a nice, clean way. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I hear that my audio is choppy. To improve. Any better?
Yeah, your audio is a little bit choppy.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I'm going to close something that, even though it's muted, may be the source of the issue. Okay, is that any better?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Good, good, okay. Now I know what not to do. So I was talking about leaders. We can, with leaders, have the leader fill in the name of the group with a detail such as the topic of their paper. Can also sign up students. So unusual way that we've used the leader functionality here at Wharton is for a group of students that's doing a paper together under deadline pressure to have the leader fill out the membership of the student group right before they turn in the paper. So sort of just-in-time team formation. Another fairly recent change to the group category settings is about having students all come from the same section. That itself has been in Canvas for quite a while, but what's new is when you're placing students in group and you want Canvas to do that automatically, to just build exactly the number of groups you want for each section and set your limits appropriately. If you've got two sections of unequal sizes, that might be a case where you edit the groups that you want, or the larger limit that you need. So just work out the numbers so that when Canvas splits them up, there will be exactly the right size and number of groups for each of your sections. Would that require all students in a group to be from the same section checked? When you have Canvas assign the students automatically, it will now put students all from the same section in one group, and that is a really helpful feature. So if you've used student groups, which we'll talk about in a later session of the GROUPIES series, students can be in more than one group in student groups. Course group sets or group categories associated with assignments, with those that's not the case, students can join only one group per category. One thing that's really nice in the student interface that unfortunately the teacher interface doesn't have is this search box that shows you both unassigned users, people who aren't in groups yet, as well as students in groups. So this is in a self-sign-up scenario a great way for students to see, okay, I know that I want to work with person A and person B, and I can see that A is already in this group, so I'll join that one, or I can see that none of them are in this group, so I'm going to pick one that has no students and join that and try to get everybody to be there if I'm not the leader. Students aren't notified about self-sign-up when it becomes available. So just like with the earlier advice to provide a way from the assignment description, from an announcement, from some other messaging to help the students find their way to that sign-up. You also might want to use the announcement or the notification of an edit to really communicate that now is the time to sign up, and you need to do that sign up before you turn in your group project. And there is for the overall group set a message students who are not signed up in the group category gear.
Rob, we have a question from the chat coming from Lisa, and she asks, what is the best policy for if a student joins the wrong group and the self-sign-up is enabled, submits their assignment, and then joins the correct group?
I'm actually going to talk about that exact scenario a little later.
Perfect. Awesome. So we'll move up forward. Whoops. There you go.
So over the years, our faculty have always wanted to see the group sign up, and it's mostly not the case that a teacher can do that through settings student view, but my team has been known to arrange for a test account when they feel like they absolutely have to see it. What's been improved in recent years is that if you're a teacher and you go to settings and then student view, the test student does see that list of available groups, but they're all going to appear locked. The join, switch, and leave isn't shown. And as we were saying before, the links in the student guides have some great stuff. The ones about how do I join a group as a student, how do I leave a group as a student, those do apply to group categories associated with assignments or groups in a course. The how do I create a group as a student, that only applies to student groups. So that's not part of today's meeting, and the created group as a student is not available. What that means to you and your configuration of the groups is occasionally users who are new to Canvas, teachers who are new to Canvas, sometimes think that all I need to do is build the group set, and my students will just sort of register their group and the groups within the set get created. It doesn't work that way. You need to build every group that you need in the course in advance. Canvas may do that for you depending on how you created the group category, but if you don't see any groups and it's time for you to place students in groups or time for students to start signing up, use that plus button in the group category and start building those groups.
Thanks, Rob. It sounds like a lot of emphasis is definitely needed at the beginning when you're designing your course and you're designing your groups as before the class starts, so that students have a place to go. So the next part of our presentation, so we've talked a little bit about how to set up and create those groups, and there's a lot of variations that you can do. I know that when I used to create group assignments, I liked shuffling my groups around. So I would create a group set, organize my students in one area, create a second group set, same thing. It wasn't anything unique. It was just, and then shuffle them around again so that every assignment had a different group associated with it so that they would have an opportunity to shuffle. So everybody has a different approach, and I think it's important to know your options and knowing how the different variations that Canvas allows in setting up the groups is helpful or not. And maybe you can sort of talk to this a little bit more, Rob, just in terms of leaders in a group, while they can certainly manage the group and, impact the group membership by either removing a member or do you recommend that feature is disabled if you're associating a group for an assignment purpose so that they don't sort of change the membership of the group?
If you have a need for leaders, the tasks that they need to do, which may be either renaming the group or assigning other members, it's usually only needed for a little while. If you, and we'll recap this later, but if you turn off the self-sign-up, the leaders will still be in place, and the names of them will be shown to you as the teacher on the people page. So that's a nice way to sort of maintain, who is the leader, and have Canvas show that to you without keeping those options active. We haven't found it necessary to remove the leader setting entirely once it's been used in a self-sign-up scenario.
Okay, good to know. Okay, so let's move into, now you've created the groups, you've created sort of a structure that works for you in your class. Let's associate that group with an assignment. So now we began the assignment life cycle. In other words, now you're creating an assignment and you're going to go through the creation and submission and grading process of that assignment. So you have to first create the association of the group to the assignment. So in this slide, we're looking at the group settings or the assignment settings. And in one area of the assignment settings, there's a little checkbox that you can check to make it a group assignment. And what that essentially is asking you is to select the group set that you want to associate with this assignment. So in this case, it could be debate groups, it could be presentation groups, it could be whatever group set that you want to associate. This is also an opportunity, if you haven't built your groups in advance, to kind of create a group category or group set here. And so if you find that you want to create a new group set, then you would click new group category, and it'll allow you to give a couple of options. It'll allow you to make it a self-sign-up or not. And so it's a really quick way to create a group from the assignment page. But if you want to have a little bit more granularity in the assignment in the group configurations, you will have to go to the People tab and sort of adjust from there. Once you create the assignment and you associate that group, I will mention that there is a button here to assign grades to each student individually, and I know Rob will kind of talk a little bit more to this towards the back end when he's talking about grading. But basically what that means is, do you want to submit, when you're grading these assignments, do you want to assign a grade to the group as a whole, or do you want to grade each student individually, even though it's a group assignment? From the student perspective, what the student sees is they see a page that has the same page. It looks the same as any other assignment. They'll see a button that says Submit Assignment. If they see the button that says Resubmit Assignment, then that's an indication that someone on their group already submitted the assignment. So that could be confusing to students. So you may want to think about explaining that or saying something to that nature in your class. So effectively, if they're resubmitting, it's similar to having multiple submissions in a particular assignment. It's just you want to be clear with your groups who is maybe the leader is in charge, for example, of submitting the assignment or something like that. So keep that in mind. So with that, I'll hand it over to Rob again, and as he talks about what are some things to consider as you're creating the assignment itself, assignment that's linked to some group associations.
Thanks, Birai. So one of the most important things that we communicate to our faculty since a change about a year ago to the import tool is look in your people page and see whether there's a group category that's visible called project groups. If that's there, that's an indicator that you've imported some group assignments from previous courses. The checkbox that we saw in the last slide, that this is a group assignment, that checkbox setting will import when you bring a group assignment from a previous course into your current course. But the name of the group category which had been used in that previous course won't necessarily come along unless coincidentally it happened to be called project groups. When you see project groups, that's really an indicator, hey, Canvas could tell that I'm trying to reuse a group assignment from a previous course, but I have a lot more configuration than I need to do. For example, building the groups themselves. That's not going to be the individual groups are not going to be there under that project groups tab that's created. Maybe project groups isn't the name that you want to use. You can be certain that settings like sizes and leader, those weren't going to be copied. That projects group tab is again, just kind of an indicator to you that more needs to be done. Another aspect of that's really important to understand, in your old course, when you import a bunch of group assignments, you might have used different group categories for different assignments. How it looks when you have imported those at the beginning is there's just one group tab. So this is a situation where you really just need to edit each of those group assignments, see what's going on in the settings, rebuild the group categories that you need, especially if you need more than one group category for different types of group assignments. And then be sure to build the groups, because students can't join or be placed in the groups unless they're built. So once students have joined or been placed in groups, as B. Wright showed in a couple of slides back, the way that students submit is largely the same as for individual submissions, whether it's a file upload or a different submission type. Because groups in a course give students their own group subsites. These are things that will show up under groups in the global navigation, will show up on the front page, on the home page of a course in most cases. For reasons that have never been completely clear to me, with those very useful collaboration subsites being provided as part of groups, sometimes the sites themselves, the subsites themselves, become attractive to students in a group for where they should turn in their assignment. And so it can help to, just tell students, just because we're using group assignments doesn't mean you don't go to the assignment itself to do your submission. You want to look for that submit assignment button or that resubmit assignment. You don't want to go to your group files, for example, if it's a file upload assignment. A copy of the submission will get there anyway, just like users now have that very nice submissions folder in their personal files. Each group subsite in a course will get a submissions folder created automatically right after a submission, and it's read-only there, which is great. That was a very nice recent enhancement to Canvas, that students can no longer invalidate their group submission by managing things in their group subsite files area. Quota can be a factor here, and this is, if you're a teacher and you don't know what the quota is, assume that it's 50 megabytes and ask your administrator about that, but also bear in mind that the quota for a group subsite really only applies to the stuff students in the group are sharing with each other. Quota checks are always skipped during the submit assignment process. And then this may be familiar to some, unfamiliar to others. When you're using group assignments, you can't use quizzes. You can't assign quizzes to groups currently. There have been great feature discussions about that. And currently, it also can't be an external tool assignment. It will be really cool if that ever changes. I have some ideas about that. If people are interested, reach out to me after the session. I think that there's a story for LTI coverage of group memberships that might eventually connect those worlds.
Thank you, Rob. So once you've created the assignment and associated the groups and kind of took some of those considerations that Rob suggested in mind, then the assignment is ready to go. Students start submitting. And so what happens now on the back end of grading and kind of managing those submissions? So if you go into your speed grader, you will recognize that instead of a drop down that has student names, you will see that those drop downs will have group names instead. And so you will see one submission per group and be able to, just like anything else, annotate if it's like a specific, depending on the submission type. This is an example of a document, but you'll still be able to annotate or comment and provide feedback to everybody in the group. In the comment section, it'll go to everybody. When you enter a score, it will be populate the grade book for every student that's in that group. Unless, of course, you checked assignment, grade each individually, which Rob will talk about in just a second. If there's a rubric, you can still grade with a rubric to a group assignment. So effectively, it's the same thing. And instead of having one submission per user, you'll have one submission per project or per group. And so in the grade book as well, if you enter a score for group assignments, those scores will propagate it to each student in the group. Okay, so I will hand it over to Rob, who will talk a little bit more about some of those considerations that you want to make as an instructor grade or a TA grading those group assignments.
Thank you. The downloading one submission at a time through SpeedGrader works the same way that it would with an individual submission. Just like how using a group assignment changes the sort of flipper of SpeedGrader from being a student flipper to a group flipper, a group assignment, setting an assignment to be a group assignment also changes the behavior of download submissions back on the assignment page or in the gradebook column menu. So you'll get within your zip file for bulk download submissions, you'll get one download per group's submitted file with the group name prepended to the submission file name. In the screenshot a couple back, if we can go back 2 slides, be right really briefly. There's something, 3 slides, I'm sorry. That's the one. If we look at the top right student flipper here, there's before paper group 1, paper group 3, there's Leopold test 111. So that happens to be the first and last name of a fake student in my test course that I use for this screenshot. That can totally happen in a case where a group assignment is turned in by a student who hasn't signed up for a group. This has changed in Canvas over the years, but we've found this state of things where when a student not signed up for a group submits to a group assignment individually, to have their name shown in SpeedGrader, that's helpful in lots of ways. A few of our faculty, use this intentionally for when things are a mix of individual and group submissions. It's kind of living on the edge. If you want that, I think it's really important to have declared times where you tell students this is when you sign up if you're going to and now I'm turning off self-signups that you can't switch. Other teachers may, just for things to be cleaner, want to advise their students, sign up for a group even if you're not working with anybody else, and let me know. I can, try to get that group size down to 2. I don't think you can set a group size to 1 today. And then in that scenario, you'd still see the names of every group, but it just will so happen that certain submissions will be from a group composed of a single student. Let's go back ahead 3 slides, B-Right, if you can. And I want to come back to Lisa's question. So policies for when students join the wrong group. So here's what to expect. If there's either just because of confusion or because there are several group assignments in a course, which and something momentous happens such that let's call student A has just decided, okay, I no longer want to work with the rest of paper group 1, and I want to work with paper group 2. And I make that switch after somebody in my group has already turned in the first group assignment. This is where weird things can start happening. Here's what to look for. Unfortunately, there's not a log or audit trail for group sign up. There's nothing like the wonderful gradebook history feature for group sign up. But when you have a situation where the same submission appears in SpeedGrader from more than one group, that's a hint that it's very likely that there's been some sort of group switch. So best practices, Lisa asked for, what happens when a student joins the wrong group, submits their assignment, and joins the correct group. Try your best, if you're the teacher, try your best at that point to turn self-sign-up off if you can. If self-sign-up wasn't used, try to resist the temptation to move students around en masse, especially resist the temptation to think this is sort of a natural behavior of any sort of revision, whether it's a file or a group or something else, that you want to delete the thing that's wrong and then recreate it right. Don't do that. You want to leave your groups in place as much as you can. If you can contact the student and get and maybe other group members and just sort of reconstruct the story, what may help, what we have found to help for clearing up the problem of the same submission appears for 2 groups, and one of those 2 group submissions appears to be lost, doesn't appear in SpeedGrader, doesn't appear in the bulk download submissions, is to very carefully, once you're certain what happened, try to put that student back in their original group and see whether that brings normalcy. Going forward, you're not going to want to use this set of groups for any future assignment. And there's a great feature in the group category gear menu called Clone Group Set that allow you to essentially copy all the groups in a course, their settings, their memberships. You give that cloned group category a new name, and then you go back and associate the cloned corrected group set with future assignments. For courses where it's intended that you want to give students sort of a grace period to switch groups, but they can mostly stay in their own groups if they want. Cloned group set and working with successive cloned assignment groups is a great way to manage that. And this slide is pretty much that what I just talked about. So again, the best practice is if situations are arising where students might be tempted to move around, your best friend is turning off that self-sign-up if you can. Another type of disaster that we've cleaned up in the past is, in that project groups that's unconfigured scenario, you may wind up with a situation where you didn't realize that the groups were missing. Students turn things in anyway. If you have, a reference to what group students are in, even though that's not reflected in Canvas, if there have been group submissions where no groups were built, we've actually seen it work to build the groups in that project group category at that point, place the students in the right groups, and somehow Canvas fixes that up. Don't count on it, but if you're in that scenario, it's worth trying. We're about to transition into grading group submissions, and I'll come back to another quick fix that you can do for certain grading scenarios when you're aware that the membership of students within groups kind of went weird, but you want to make sure that you're getting the right grade to the right student. Okay, this is a consideration slide, so I can talk about that now. I got confused for a second. I guess we'll come back to that. With groups in a course, we talked before about how students can use their group subsites for lots of different tasks. They may feel, kind of stuck within their group site. How do I get back? So be prepared to give them tips like look at the breadcrumbs at the top. If you go back to the home of your group page, you will get a breadcrumb back to the course. So that's something that students have to learn. For the group, for working with the groups as a teacher, unfortunately there's not an at-a-glance reference to who's in a group. As things are right now, you've currently got to go to your people page, go to that group tab, and just open up every group if you want to be able to see or use Control F to find which student is in which group. And it's not in the gradebook. If you want to send a message to a group, if you use Conversations for course communication, you can do that. Unfortunately, you can't do it from the people page. If you go to your inbox and you have any group categories defined, you'll be able to see the collection of course groups when you're addressing an inbox message. We talked about quota before, and we talked about the leader being able to edit before. There's not an export of groups in a course as a built-in feature of Canvas, nor is there an import. There is an API for groups, and it works well. The link that's on the slide we're looking at right now is an application that was built by one of my former staff for turning the memberships of a group category into a spreadsheet, in essence. I believe that over the years, there's been one other in the Canvas community that's been developed like that. I don't think either of these are at a so-called Canvancement stage, to borrow the name of James Jones's amazing series of Google documents that talk to the Canvas API. More recently, one of my staff has done an import for course groups, and we'll be making plans to share that out in the community in the future as well. When feature idea voting come back, you'll often see my name. When feature idea discussions and new feature idea suggestion comes back, you'll definitely see my name out there when it's a time at which Canvas product team is considering enhancements to groups. And I can definitely envision wanting to, continue to discuss out in the community and resubmit whenever possible ideas for group import and export. I think at least one of those is in product radar now. That it can be done with the API.
Great. Are there any other considerations that I may have missed in the slide there? Did you want to go back on something?
Let's see. Was there another slide about grading group submissions? If not, I can. I think one point that we haven't really talked about yet is what happens with the score, and if you're using feedback, the comment entry with group submissions. So it's pretty simple, and what Canvas does to automate that is very powerful and convenient. When you're in SpeedGrader, you enter the score once, and it's issued to all students. For your comments in SpeedGrader, they're defaulted to send comment to the whole group. So any assignment comment you enter, your TAs enter, are going to be available to the students in their submission details for that group submission. But let's say there's a problem where one student in a group, it's come to your attention that they didn't contribute, that they didn't put forth the effort, or other reasons for what I'm about to describe might be that you intend, you have information on how students work together, and you intend to offset their grades. When you want to do that, in the assignment settings, one of the safe edits for an assignment after students turn in group assignments is to check that assign grades to each student individually when it was previously unchecked. Save that setting, but make no other changes. Canvas mostly will prevent you from making any other illegal changes at that point. And then once you do that, the student by student selection at the top right of SpeedGrader is restored. With Gradebook, the changes, if you enter a different grade in a cell, those now won't propagate back to the other members. And so when you have a good reason to give person A an 8 out of 10 when every other member of the group is getting 10 out of 10, there is a way to do that, and it's through that assign grades to each student individually assignment setting. Expect that when that setting is in place, that you no longer get the group file names and just one file name per group submission in your download submissions zip file for bulk downloads. With that checkbox on for assign grades to each student individually, the bulk downloads now seem like an individual assignment at this point. If you weren't expecting that, it may seem kind of strange. Why is Canvas giving me duplicates? But it all makes sense. The duplicates are because this set of students work together and they genuinely have the same submission.
Great. So that brings us to the conclusion of our presentation. So there are basically 3 things in the group creation process. When you create the groups, there are some considerations that you want to make when you're actually creating the assignments and then associating a group to that assignment, some things to think about. And then in the grading, in the back end of submission, grading and feedback and processes, most of them are the same as you would any assignment, but I think as Rob pointed out, there might be some exceptions, or a student might submit in a different group, or you might want to modify a grade for specific student, things like that. That might be helpful to know some of the workarounds for that type of stuff. I just wanted to share that we do have a series of these groups conversations coming up. So the next one we're going to talk about are assignment groups, and that's coming up next month. And these assignment groups will talk about how to organize your assignments into different groups for different purposes, for organization, for weighted grades and things like that. Completely different than what we talked about today. And then we will also in March talk about assignments for groups. So this is considered as differentiated assignments effectively, and how to create assignments that only a specific set of students will see and will be counted towards their grade. So different things again, and we'll continue the series onwards to discuss other aspects of groups, as we mentioned at the very beginning. So if you want to follow along in the series, feel free to go to Canvas Live, live.canvaslms.com. This is where all of our live events happen. Be sure to follow the space so that you're notified of any upcoming events. If you look at the under that events, if you do a search for hashtag groupies, you'll find all of the group related activities that come up. We have a Canvas Live user group. This is where community members get together and another group. This is a group in our community, not in Canvas. So you feel free to join there. That's a lot of where a lot of community members brainstorm and kind of work together to come up with some ideas to present at Canvas Live, like Rob and I did. And then, of course, we have our Canvas Live chat rooms where you can go into the chat space and connect with other community members live. Especially great when you're setting up your courses and troubleshooting, and it's fun to kind of pop in and ask a couple questions. And usually there's Canvas community members in there kind of chatting as well. So that concludes our presentation. Let's see if there are any additional questions that seem to have popped up. Joe asks, how do you schedule a group assignment that has different due dates for each group in that assigned group set? Do you want to address that?
I'll try my best. A later Groupies event is going to be about differentiated assignments, and that's really the starting point for this. In that. When you want to have different due dates for different groups, let me see if I can remember the current state of supporting this. I am checking something in a test course to make sure that I give you the right answer, so bear with me for just a moment. Yes, it does work this way. Okay, so you'd use a combination in your assignment settings of this is a group assignment with the correct group set selected, and then using assign to for the specific due dates that you're assigning to each group. So if in the Canvas guides, if you go to one of the instructor guide lessons for assigning, separate different due dates or to people in a course, you can, with this is group assignment checked, you get selection for assigning to specific groups, and that's how you can vary the due date. One aspect of that feature that we'll probably cover in the later session is that a bunch of folks in the community wanted this to work with individual assignments where you're using the group for memberships, that you don't have to type a bunch of names in the assigned to group, but still have it be an individual assignment. And unfortunately, that's not possible. But again, that future session about assignments done by groups of students that will likely cover assignments done by groups of students that are individual.
Perfect. Yeah, you pretty much summed it up perfectly, Joe, Rob. Joe, I would definitely encourage you to attend the March session that we're doing for groupies. In the series, we'll definitely target differentiated assignments specifically and how groups play a role in that. What you're asking is kind of twofold, a little bit of what we did today and demonstrated how to create a group assignment, plus a little bit of differentiated assignments in some of the settings that need to be sort of considered to make that combination of considerations or permissions available for that particular assignment. So definitely this can absolutely get more and more robust as you leverage groups in a variety of different ways and in combination with other settings in Canvas. But absolutely keep coming back to our groupie session. We'll have more to come and we'll start kind of diving in deeper and deeper into these different areas. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rob, so much for being here. We appreciate your insight and value kind of the considerations that you've shared with us today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please feel free to connect with us in the community. Rob is available. You can also type in your follow-up questions on the event page, and we will certainly get back to you and as best we can to answer any questions that may be outstanding. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for attending. And as B-Ray suggested, feel free to post some questions. We can use the event page as sort of a little mini clinic for group assignment questions after this event.
Sounds great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and we will see you at a future Canvas Live session.